Good morning. I continue to talk on this text. If you have this book, page 130, third paragraph of page 130. Let me read this paragraph. The very same thing can be said about time. Usually, we assume that time is something that is flowing from the past through the present and toward the future, and that we live within time. However, if we think about this in terms of raw life experience, we realize that this is not at all so. The past has already gone by and doesn't exist, and the future hasn't come yet, so it doesn't exist either. Actually, there is just this one moment of the present. Our ideas of past and future are nothing but the scenery that floats into our minds within this momentary present. One might be tempted to say that this isn't true, since old things like buildings and books are right here and now. However, as the reality of life, these buildings and books exist only in the present. And thinking that they are old is nothing but the present thought in my head. In other words, my current existing head gives the attribute of old to the buildings and books that exist right now. In terms of raw life experience, we are always living out the present that is only the present. The now that is only now. In this section, Okumura Roshi has been discussing about magnanimous mind, big mind, and he talks about the self. And I showed several times in the last my talk. First, he said our life is really completely individual. So there's nothing we can share with others. Okumura Roshi wrote graffiti like this. Each one has our own life, and there's nothing to exchange. And he called this jiko giri no jiko, maybe that is self. That is only self. Nothing can be shared with others. We share, we communicate each other using languages, but before using language, we cannot share anything, actually. And yet, finally, he said, our life is one together with all beings within entire world. This is also, Okumura Roshi called, this is also saying that is only the self. The self, that is only the self. There's no others. Everyone we encounter within this life, this world, is ourselves. So this expression self, that is only self, include both sides. We are completely alone, completely unique, and each one of us has our own world. But in that world, we are one together with all beings. Here, Uchimura doesn't only say two sides, but to me, it's more understandable to put another side of the self, that is no self. Actually, there's no such self. That's why we can be one with all beings. So if we don't miss this no self, self is zero, then it's kind of difficult to understand why this and this can be together. And that is what he is saying. And he said, magnanimous mind is live together with all beings, as this everything we encounter is our life. And in this paragraph, he talks about the same things about time. And in the end of this paragraph, as I read, it said, in terms of raw life experience, it's not a concept, it's not something we think, but this raw life experience is the experience we have before being processed in our thinking, the actual raw, fresh experience. We are, so in terms of raw life experience, we are always living out the present that is only the present. So he says the same thing, self that is only the self. And here about the time he said, a present, the present that is only the present. And that now that is only now. So he says exactly the same thing about the self and about the time. Time is really interesting thing, I think. We think we know what time is. We are living within the structure of the time system, in which now it's about 10:25, and now I have to talk until about 11, hopefully. Or I have to talk more longer than that. So this 10 to 11 is a time I have to talk about Uchimura Roshi's writing. So I have to make preparation that I can say something hopefully meaningful to other people. So we are living within that time, and we know, what time is. But this system of time is not reality, but this is a fiction. As I sometimes said, when we drive to Chicago, there's one hour different between time, because Chicago is in different time zone. So time is determined depending upon which part of the earth we are, and it works. Most of the places, most of the part of the earth, but at least two places this system doesn't work. That is North Pole and South Pole. If we are really on the South Pole, there's no way to measure measure the time, right? I think, and in the South Pole also. So within this structure of the time, there's no time. At least two places on the earth, and I think it's not true. It is a strange thing. I think such things happens because time is man-made things. We agree to use this system because it works for most of our daily lives. Because no one lives on the South Pole and North Pole and South Pole, so no one complains. That's all. So, I think even North Pole and South Pole, there is a time. And time is always flow from past to the future through present. There's no such exceptions. So this time and this time is different. This is simply a fiction. But we think this time is really flowing from past to the future. But this is a kind of a common sense, common understanding of our time. But this is not only the way we can understand or we view the time. At least there are two more ideas about times in Buddhism. One is time flow from future to the past, future to the present, and present to the past. It's kind of against our common way of thinking, but this is this view of time is mentioned in the Buddhist text, written in the school named Sarvasti Varden. That is one of the most not popular but powerful sect or school of Buddhism in India before Mahayana. Anyway, what they thought is Sanze, Jitsu, and Hottai, Go, Sanze means 3 times, that is past, present, and future. And Jits is true, truly or really, U is being or is. So 3 times, past, present, and future are really there. We usually think past has gone and the future has not yet come. So past and future doesn't exist. But they think past, present, and future, all 3 times are really existing. And Hottai means Dharma body. They analyzes all beings into 75 categories, and they think all of them are go means always or permanently, always being, always there. That means there's no atma, no self or no soul, but all those elements, it's like atom in physics. Those atoms are not today's physics, but classic physics. Atom is a final existence. Atom cannot be broken into the elements. So they thought, those Buddhist monks thought that those 75 dharmas are like atoms. Those cannot be divided into any smaller pieces. So they are always existing. And what they said is, so past is still there, and present is there, and the future is also really existing. And what they said, they thought is, these doesn't move, doesn't change, but time flow from future to the present. Does this make sense? That's why we think we are, we are moving the opposite way. We don't move, but time moves. That's why we feel we are moving this way. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. It's really interesting idea. And if we adopt this idea, we can see, time travel is possible. If past has gone, so there's nothing in the past, so there's no way to travel to the past. But if past is still there, if we can travel through this flow of time, then we can return to the past. Otherwise, the science fiction of time traveling is not possible. So this has some sense, but we usually don't think this is how we are or how time is. This is a third view. This is a note I made when we studied Shobogenzo Uji being time. Dogen has very unique view about time. And when we studied Shobogenzo Uji, I tried to understand what kind of views are there in Buddhism and other traditions. So this is one view within Buddhist tradition. Another view or another way of understanding time, that is fourth, is what Nagarjuna said in Majjhimaka Karika. What he said is, if it is assumed that time exists depending upon an existent, how can there be time without an existent? No existent whatsoever is found to exist. Where can time be? This means I think this is Nagarjuna's criticism against this idea of time. So, Theravada monks thought time is really existing. Past, present, and future are really existing. But Nagarjuna said, time is the way we understand the change of things. If things doesn't change, we cannot see times. Because things change, we think something was in the past, and now it is happening in this way. And future, because of how it has been and it is, future might be this or that. So without any existence, any things changing, impermanent things, there's no time. And Nagarjuna is the idea that things doesn't exist. It's empty. Therefore, time is also empty. Time doesn't exist. That is, I think, fourth idea about time. And please.
I have a question. And yet, emptiness, when you've talked about that before, my understanding was that it's just impermanence that creates emptiness, or isn't that so?
Yeah, neither wu nor mu.
Right.
Yeah, neither existing nor not existing is what emptiness means. But when Nagarjuna used this word wu, or existence, means it has its own self-nature. Therefore, it doesn't change. That is what Nagarjuna is negating. So, because things are changing, impermanent, and it looks like being, and also at the same time no being, non-being.
Right.
Therefore, time is the same. Time is also empty. Time doesn't really exist as a self-nature.
I see.
That is the point.
Thank you.
So these are kind of two ways of viewing time in Buddhist teachings. And another thing that is interesting to me is about what is said by how do you pronounce this person's name? Saint Augustine. In Japan, we call him Saint Augustinus. Is that from Latin? Anyway, this Saint Augustine is very important Catholic father, Christian father, who lived in 354 to 430. So 4th to 5th century. And his writing is entitled Confessions. It's a very well-known writing in Christianity. I think, because Okumura Roshi studied Western philosophy and Catholic theology, probably what he says in this paragraph came from St. Augustine's idea about time. To me, it's what Okumura Roshi is saying here is close to what St. Augustine is saying about time. First, St. Augustine said, "What then is time? What is time? Provided that no one asks me, I know." If I want to explain, so if someone asks me what is time and I try to explain, if I want to explain it to an inquirer, I do not know. That means we know what time is in our daily lives, but we don't really seriously think what time it is. So I start to think and try to explain, we have to give up. And yet he tried. And one first thing he said is, first point I think interesting is, but I confidently affirm myself to know that if nothing passes away, there is no past time. And if nothing arrives, there is no future time. So past is something that is gone and future is that is coming. So direction is this way. And if nothing exists, there would be no present time. I think this is what Nagarjuna said.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing existed, there would be no present time. So things are moving from future to present and present to the past. We think there is time. Take the two tenses, past and future. How can they be? How can they exist when the past is not now, present, and the future is not yet present? So, St. Augustine said, past has already gone and the future has not yet come. So only the present is really there. How can they be? Yet, if the present were always present, it would not pass into the past. Does it make sense? So, present must be moved, change. It would not be time, but eternity. If present doesn't change, it is eternity. Then he said, if then, in order to be time at all, the present is so made that it passes into the past, how can we say that this present also is? Present is always moving toward the past. So how can we say present is existing? If it existing as a self-nature in Buddhist term, then this present moment is eternity. If it's always moving, present is always moving, how can we say present moment is existing? The cause of its being is that it will cease to be. So time is really a strange thing. It's existing in order to cease to be, cease to exist. So indeed, we cannot truly say that time exists. We cannot say time exists, except in the sense that it tends toward non-existence. So, to me, what Nagarjuna, St. Augustine saying is quite same as Nagarjuna's. Time doesn't really exist. This is first point. And second point is a little later, St. Augustine said, when time is measured, where does it come from? When time is measured, where does it come from? By what route does it pass? And where does it go? And he said, it must come out of the future. So he also said time comes from the future. It must come out of the future, pass by the present, and go into the past. So St. Augustine also thinks time flows from future to the past, same as these Buddhist monks. So it's interesting to me, at least there is another view, which is almost opposite to our we commonly think. So go into the past. So it comes from what as yet does not exist. So it comes from what as yet does not exist. Pass through that which lacks extension. So he is saying this present moment has no extension. I think this is interesting. He knows that this present moment has no length. You know, I often ask American people, what is the word for this time which has no length or no extension? And often people say there's no such word. It's interesting. But at least St. Augustine thinks this present moment has no extension. So passes through that which lacks extension and goes into that which is now non-existence. So time coming from future that has not yet come, and present that has no extension, and the past it's already gone. So where is time? I think Okumura Roshi's idea of time came from this saying by St. Augustine. Yet what do we measure by time over some extension? Yet what do we measure but time over some extension? There's no much time. This is the second point of St. Augustine's idea about time. That is, time flow from future to the present and present to the past. And third point is what he's saying. What is by now evident and clear is that neither future nor past exist. I think we agree with that. And it is inexact language to speak of three times: past, present, and future. So to say past, present, and future not really exist. There's no such things. So about this point, St. Augustine doesn't agree with this idea in Buddhism. Past, present, and future are really existing, but he said it doesn't really exist. Perhaps it would be exact to say there are three times: a present of things past, a present of things past. So he's saying this present moment is only actual moment. Past has gone and the future has not yet come. So this is only real moment, this present moment. So he said, perhaps it would be exact to say there are three times: a present of things past, a present of things present, a present of things to come. I think this is what Okumura Roshi is saying in this paragraph. Or, he talks about some old buildings. There are many old buildings in Kyoto where he lived. Or there are many, in the world there are many old places. And we really see the buildings that is, more than 1,000 years old. So, I believe, more than 1,000 years ago, some people built that building, and that building is existing for such a long time. So I believe, there are past and peace. There were past and people did something. That is how we think, or that is, my memory about my parents or my teacher, Okumura Roshi. They are there, but they are not here. But I know they were there. So I know past was existing. But past was existing as a thinking, as a thought. It might be correct. There might be incorrect thought about the past, but in this case, these are the correct thinking. But what Okumura Roshi is saying, this correct thinking is happening only in this present moment. It doesn't mean the past is still existing at present moment. So only present moment is here, and now I think in the past, such and such things happened. And about the future, my parent is dead, and yet I'm still alive. So I assume even after my death, my children and other people continue to live, or this world continue to exist. But to me, as within my life, there's no way to make sure that is true. As a thinking, it is true, I think, I hope. But there's no way to make sure it's really true. That is a kind of an expectation or prediction or my thinking or my hope. Something continue to exist after my death. But all those things are happening in my mind. I think that is what St. Augustine is saying here. So there are 3 times within this present moment. So he said, the present of the past, and present of the present, and present of the future. So there are 3 times: a present of things past, a present of things present, a present of things to come. In the soul, he said soul. In the soul, there are these three aspects of time. So basically, those 3 times is a 3 aspect of time in this present moment. And I do not see them anywhere else. That means he used this word in the soul, but we can use it in our mind, in our thinking. There are 3 times as a 3 aspects of this moment, this present moment. And there's those 3 times are not there, not anywhere else, only within our thinking. The present, considering the past. The present, considering the past, is memory. The present, considering the present, is immediate awareness. The present, considering the future, is expectation. If we are allowed to use such language, I see 3 times and admit they are there. They are there, mean they are here. this is really interesting to me. And what Okumura Roshi is writing in this paragraph is closer to what St. Augustine said in this book, rather than these two ideas in Buddhism that 3 times are really existing, or Nagarjuna's 3 times doesn't really exist, it's empty. But what Nagarjuna said and what St. Augustine said and what Okumura Roshi is saying here is the same thing, at least to me. So I always said about self and time as self is one, as me, but this self is zero, it's empty. There's no such self which can exist without relation with others. And I always said, therefore, this self is infinity. And Okumura Roshi is saying, this side and this side. We are living the self that is only the self, and within this only the self, everything and all time are existing within this zero self. And I think the same thing can be said about time. This one time, present moment, has no length, and it always moving toward non-existence. So this present moment that is actually only actual moment is zero. Therefore, the time, I often say time doesn't flow. From the moment of Big Bang until now, if we make a segment like today, yesterday, 3 days ago, or a century ago, or those things, we can see or we can think time flows. But if we stop making such segment, make such a measurement, this is simply one seamless moment. And I call this eternity. Permanence means within this structure of time flows from past to the future. If there's something which doesn't change, this is called permanence. And what Shakyamuni said is there's no such permanent being within this flow of time from past to the future. But this is the same time, but there's no such segment. And so this is only one moment. I call this eternity. I'm not sure if this usage of eternity is correct or not in English language, but to me that is the difference between permanence and eternity. And I think the same thing can be said about the space. We always said, right now, right here, only the self. This here, now, and the self is one thing. That is Dogen Zen's teaching. Being and time are one. And also space are one. That means we are here. When I say I am here now means I am talking in the Zendo at Sanshinji in Bloomington, Indiana. But if I if I say I have been living here for 25 years, this here means this United States. So here can mean, the entire United States, or in this small zendo. But within this small zendo, we can also say here and there. I'm here, you are there. So this small space can be separated, divided into two places, here and there. So if here has even a little bit smallest is extension like that. If even in the case of time, it said there's no length, but there's no space, no extension. That means if even little bit extension, then we can cut into two sides. And this is here and that is there. So actually here does not mean no time, no place. This is, I think, the definition of dot in mathematics. The dot only has a position, no extension. If even there is a slightest extension, then there's no way to measure the exact distance between here and there. So here should not have any extension. So here is zero, actually. Therefore, because it is zero, I think it can be anywhere, can be one with entire universe, entire space. So this one equal zero equal infinity can be, applied to time, space, and the self. Until I find this kind of interesting or idea, I don't really understand what Dogen or even Okumura Roshi is talking about when they say, self that is only the self. And it can mean two things. One is only these 5 skandhas. I can live only this particular 5 skandhas. And yet he said, we are living together with all beings. Actually, that is what is said in Mahayana Buddhism. But how can we connect these two sides? To me, to is put zero in here, then one and infinity can be one. This is at least my understanding of what Okumura Roshi or Dogen Zenji is saying. This is what I have to say this morning. I hope you understand. I'm not sure what I said is right or wrong, but probably there's no right and wrong. That is, there are many different ways to view this one reality we are living. And to me, this is a kind of interesting point to, how can I say, opening our hand, letting go of my understanding. You think time flow from past to the present and present to the future. This is it. But if we study, the history of human thought, then there's many other way of viewing the same time. I think in modern science they have different idea also. So this is a way I think we can be flexible. We can be, in a sense, we can deconstruct what is already built in our brain as a kind of one construction. And by studying, we are in a sense accumulating each bricks of knowledge, and finally we kind of construct a big system or building of knowledge. And unfortunately, this building we constructed through our effort of studying and learning become a prison, and we cannot get out of them. So to think or to study other way of doing things is really not only interesting but also helpful to let go of thought or opening the hand of thought, or to become even a little bit flexible and to study something new, and our world become even a little bit broader. Okay, any comments or question? Please.
So I had one comment. So I've been reading a little bit of Augustine for school.
Oh, really?
And it's kind of interesting. Before he was a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
he was a Manichaean, which is this other religion that started in Persia.
Mm-hmm.
And Mani, the guy that started it, thought that sort of all previous religions were kind of part of one bigger system.
Mm-hmm.
And Mani explicitly included teachings from Buddhism,
Mm-hmm.
as well as Christianity and Judaism and everything else that was around at the time. So there's kind of an interesting indirect connection between Augustine and Buddhism.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Wasn't he also from Alexandria?
Yeah, he's from North Africa. I think he lived in.
Yeah, that was the pivotal travel. That was the pivotal hub of communication. That's where all the ideas of the Far East came in and disseminated into the West.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, King Ashoka sent Buddhist monks to Alexandria.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some influence from Buddhism from India.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting, Buddhism went to the West and the East, but in the West, Buddhism didn't survive.
Yeah.
But in the East, like China and Japan and Asian countries, Buddhists become really a foundation of their culture. I don't know why, but it's interesting phenomenon. Please?
I am wondering if you could say a little bit about Dogen, his statement about the firewood burning and becoming ash. Doesn't he say something like it's cut off in time? He's talking about time.
Yeah, future, past and future are cut off. So that means this moment is only actual moment. And within this moment, firewood peacefully abide in this Dharma position. That means firewood is 100% firewood. Firewood used to be, in the past, used to be a lively tree. But that moment, the firewood was a live tree is already not existing, and the future has not yet come. So ash is not yet there. So only this moment, firewood is simply firewood, and yet, within this moment, entire past and entire future is reflected. That is really interesting.
So Dogen says that? He says in this moment,
I think so.
the past is reflected.
That fire, not in Genjo Koan, but that fire, he said, in our zazen is one with all beings and together with entire time. So present moment is only real moment, but this only real moment as connected with entire time.
Mhm.
I call that entire time as eternity.
Mhm.
So this is my understanding of reading Dogen's writings, not only one particular sentence.
Mhm. So when he says that it's cut off,
Mm.
the past
Mm.
and the future are
Mm.
cut off, he doesn't mean that they aren't somehow reflected in the present one.
Yeah,
Is that correct? Did I understand?
I think so.
Okay. Thank you.
So time is, in this view, time is only this moment, this independent moment that has nothing to do, it's not a continuation from the past,
Right.
continuation toward the future.
Mm.
But this moment is a real moment, absolute moment.
Mhm.
So I think that's why we can be changed.
Mhm.
If we think this is a continuation, a really continuation of past,
Mm.
we cannot change.
Mm.
But because this is a fresh moment, we can make change. And depending upon what we do, our future is also different.
Mm.
So this is not, how can I say, this is the way we understand time in which we can change. Please.
In Buddhism, it seems to me there are two different ways to understand Shakyamuni and the early, like what we're going to say, early Buddhism. It seems like there's this idea of nirvana or nibbana. There's Parinibbana, he's gone, no longer existent in the world. Then you have the Lotus Sutra, and then I think there's a chapter dedicated to the lifetime of the Tathagata that talks about basically the eternity of Shakyamuni.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Dogen is coming from the Tendai school.
Yeah.
The Lotus Sutra has its sort of root text, main text. And I wonder in Soto, well, not Shinto Soto, in Dogen's teaching, do you see this idea of the eternity of the Tathagata or Buddha?
Or Dogen called the eternal time as Tathagata, as Dharmakaya, Dharma body. But even Shakyamuni Buddha said, I think in Parinikaya, when someone asked, does Buddha exist after death? Buddha didn't make any answer.
So it's unclear, he didn't really Buddhism.
Yeah. So he didn't say Buddha exists after death, or he didn't exist after death. So this is interesting. I mean, the interpretation why Buddha didn't answer to some questions. It said there are 14 questions Buddha didn't answer because those questions are kind of a metaphysical question, and it has nothing to do with our salvation or not salvation. What is the word? Okay.
Too much St. Augustine.
I'm sorry. I became Christian.
Thanks.
I'd just like to say that I think the word eternity has really been used in Christianity in a way that's so different from the way you're using it. And so, I mean, this has to do with what Neil was just asking about too. So that I think when Christians talk about I'm going to die and there's an afterlife and I will exist in eternity and I'll see my grandparents and whatever, we'll meet again. You know, there is this idea of the soul that's going to continue on forever. And so I think that's very different.
Yeah, I think so too.
So following up on the point about the Lotus Sutra, in that chapter, The Lifespan of the Tathagata, I think it doesn't actually say that the Tathagata is eternal, it just says that he lives for a very, very long time. to avoid the possible charge of eternal.
The word expression used is kuon. Kuon. On is far away, and ku means long time. So, but Chinese or Japanese word for eternity is A-N. And A and ku is almost the same meaning. So kuon can mean, I don't know how long. it's closer to eternity. But it said immeasurable.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much.